Warning, the Spoilercast does contain spoilers of current and past movies, books, video games, TV shows, and possibly your life. So if you're listening to a show called Spoilercast and you're pissed off that we gave away spoilers, we really don't care. Thanks again and have a wonderful day.
Hello and welcome to Spoilercast by All Tower Media. I am Roper and I am joined with Dire Monkey tonight. How are you?
What's up?
Outside of you and I, we have a pretty empty room.
It is a little echoey.
It's kind of barren.
Yeah.
So
it is a little bit.
It is just you and I this evening. I didn't want to go without actually recording an episode. It's been three weeks. It's been several weeks now since we've actually recorded one for this, as well as for Spellcast, which we just got done doing that. Yeah, so you guys have a chance to get over, check out the Spellcast episodes that they've got listed up. Had a bunch of good ones. We've been doing
new series. Does it hold up?
Does it hold up? And I've been enjoying that. We just got done discussing Beetlejuice.
We did.
Beetlejuice
Still holds up. Spoilers.
It does. Yeah.
And next week we are discussing Batman. The
19.
Original,
yeah.
Not the original, I guess, but the 1989 Tim Burton Michael Keaton.
Yes.
Batman.
Michael Keaton Batman. Good Batman. So that's the plan for that. But tonight, Adam was going to be on with me. He has hurt his leg. Told me he has a foot that won't fit inside of a shoe.
Did he say what he did?
No, he didn't say what he did. He just said he busted his foot real good. And then we were also going to have another buddy of mine. His name was Seth. He was going to be on with us discussing the history of horror. But he got a little occupied building a fence.
As you do.
I mean, you know.
It's a good fence building day.
I mean, it wasn't terribly cold.
No.
It was kind of brisk.
Yeah.
You know, just enough that you can get out there
and build a fence.
You can get hot and sweaty, but you got the cool air rushing past you. You got a bunch of easy.
He's building it for the dog, right?
Yes.
Did the dog pay for it?
Unknown.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Just wondering.
You know, it's almost worth spending $900 getting one of them Jibo robot things that your social companion dog or robot
I
thing.
have a bird. Got all I ever want.
Yeah. See, that's why I like fish.
Yeah. They are quieter.
They're quiet. They don't, evenly spread their poops all over the place.
True.
They shit in one spot.
They do.
You scoop them out, you put them in another little cup, you pour that out, you rinse it out, you clean it real good, you put them back in the bowl.
Do you think they stop to poop?
No, I don't think they stop.
All other animals stop.
They're just kind of like, and it just kind of like falls out the back
kind of like
end.
A bomber?
Yeah. It's a drive-by shitting.
Okay. Well, birds actually do it in midair, too, so,
Not always. Sometimes they're sitting up on a perch and then just...
But fish can't perch.
Right.
Unless it's a perch.
Right. Oh, man. So we were going to go through, we're going to discuss the history of horror. That was the topic Adam came up with. I want to stick to it because I made a bunch of notes. I'm really glad I made some notes.
I was all for doing this because I thought you said the history of horrors.
Oh, well, I mean,
I'm completely out of my element now.
It is the oldest profession, so...
I was way off base with what I thought this was.
So I backpedaled all the way back to the 1930s, and what I started doing was I was looking at not only So one thing that I've noticed about horror movies is it weighs heavily on social commentary, in my opinion. You get... It's not just a monster movie.
Right.
It's not just a scary movie. They're typically talking... I mean, it's like, the George Romero... zombie isn't necessarily just a zombie movie, right? It's more than that, and people rake over the social commentary all the time. And I started looking at the same thing, and I try to simplify what I thought was kind of the overarching theme for that time frame. And I started way back in the 1930s because that's where we started getting some of your classic movie monsters, your iconic movie monsters, where you get Dracula, Frankenstein. King Kong, Bride of Frankenstein, those movies were coming out. So what I did was I got on there, the old internets, and was like, hey, internets, what was happening at the 1930s or right around the 1930s that could be this social commentary that I'm talking about? And, of course, it's right there on the very tail end of the Great Depression, where, people are living in squalor and, their health is not good. And so I couldn't help but think that, with the aforementioned Dracula, Frankenstein, King Kong, all that good stuff, it's kind of this fear of the unknown and these unexplained or unexplainable deaths and things of that nature. And I think that's kind of what it was that was going on there. This is just me speculating on this. I can't, sit there and go, hey, I got myself a PhD in this kind of stuff, or I can't, I have no formal training in any of this. I know that Andrew, he went to, film school and all sorts of good stuff there. He'd have a little bit of a leg to stand on, but this is just me looking at this stuff going, okay, this is what's going on in the world. And if you really want to scare someone, you need to figure out what it is that actually scares them.
Right.
Because if you're aiming down the barrel at a target that they're not afraid of, then it falls short and your movie doesn't go anywhere. So, a lot of times people do one of two things. They either focus down real hard on the social commentary element of it, and they go, okay, this is what it is that people are widely scared of now, right? Or they blindside you and they hit you in your comfort zone, right?
Right, yeah.
Because those are the two things. Either you find your comfort zone, and that's what it is that keeps you safe from all of the scary social stuff that's going on out there. And they either use that to go, yeah, these are the big scary things, right? Or here in your comfort zone, there's monsters there too, asshole.
Yeah.
And that's the approach.
Yeah.
So have you actually sat down and watched the original Dracula, Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, King Kong, any of those? The old school black and white 1930s films. Have you watched any of those?
Frankenstein, yes. It's been a long time.
Right.
King Kong, yes. I don't think I've seen Dracula all the way through. I've seen parts of it. I think that's the only ones from that time frame.
Right.
That incarnation of those that I've seen.
Right. So this is, like I said, this is kind of the foundation, right?
Right.
For me. Clearly there were movies before this, but this is kind of the foundation for me. This is the bedrock, in my opinion. Moving up from there, is where we start kind of really getting into and taking off into bigger, better things. 1940s, pretty simple to figure out what was happening in the 1940s in the background.
Yeah.
Right?
Big war.
Big war.
Germany decided to go to war.
Right.
With the world.
Right. So we got World War II rocking its face right there. And what we started seeing is, and like I said, this is kind of my view of it, is this duality and confliction within humanity itself. We had tons of amazingly great people out there doing tons of amazingly great things. But then we also had tons of amazingly horrible people out there doing tons of amazingly horrible things.
Real grade A assholes.
Right? So we have this divide, this duality. And so at the same time, we're getting the Wolfman, right? You get Werewolf of London. You get a movie called Cat People, which I'd never heard of. I'm not familiar with it, but it's a feline take on werewolves. Yeah, that's precisely what it is. Yep. And I can't help but feel like that's the social commentary that was really striking home in the 1940s, because that's what people were scared of, right? Is, how wonderfully great and just the biggest humanitarians you could be, and how amazing they are, and the lengths that we go, and how much they fight for what it is that they had. And then on the other side of the coin, it's humanity can be just awful and horrible and bad, and that's what the Wolfman is, right?
Was there a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde movie in that time frame?
Man, I don't know.
When did they make that?
That's worth a Google. Do they have that? Would it be just Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde? 1931. That was just before. Yeah. See?
Looks like they had one in 1941 too.
Yeah, and then they redid it in
about every 10 years.
Yeah, about every 1941. Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde.
In the 20s, 30s, and 40s.
Yeah, 20s, 30s, 40s. Then again in they kind of redid it.
Maybe in 60s,
the 60s and 70s. Yeah. Wow. See, there you go. See, once we started laying this groundwork for these classic, iconic movie monsters, they just kind of keep rolling forward.
Right.
And that kind of, I noticed that became another trend. So you had 3 prongs, right? So the first one is they do use the social commentary to attack what it is that's big and scary at that time. Then you had other ones that attack your comfort zone. And then the third prong is it's a default to classic stuff. Right. And those became like your main 3 avenues. So as I'm going through these lists, sure, I'm naming off stuff that support my argument, but there were other movies at that point in time that fell outside of what it is that I'm focusing down on, right? So what I'm really trying to focus on or watch is the social commentary. That doesn't necessarily mean that those other 2 things aren't being hit as well. It's just that those they didn't strike a nerve much like what these are that I'm mentioning are. So in the 1950s, we had some really interesting things happen in the 1950s.
50s were like we were entering the space race.
Yep.
Science was really big.
Yep. Sputnik.
There was some
the formation of NASA.
There was some Cold War. Was it Cold War at that point, or turning into the Cold War?
Yep.
There was some of that, like
all of that stuff
paranoia.
is happening. Yep. And what we had there is the kind of the birth of the creature feature, right? So you had the things from beyond our world, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, The Day the Earth Stood Still, The Thing from Another World, It Came from Outer Space. See a theme here? It's the great unknown out there beyond us. That, and of course, a lot of that is outer space stuff. Because that's what we were getting into, you know, and it's the final frontier, and it's big and dark and scary, and it's kind of unsettling to think that we're the only thing out there that spawned intelligent life of some variety. And of course, people started feeding on that, and that's where you started getting a lot of this. So, following the 1950s and all of these really cool sci-fi, horror movies that we were getting there, we roll into the 1960s. Okay, and in the 60s, you had Vietnam, the Cuban Missile Crisis, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Okay, but surprisingly enough, horror movies began to kind of root themselves into more reality.
Yeah.
Okay, and what we were seeing was like Psycho, The Birds, Carnival of Souls, Night of the Living Dead, and Rosemary's Baby. Right? So while the rest of the world is getting high and fighting and lovemaking and all that good stuff, and Hollywood's approaching the other side of it,
the human side almost.
Right. So they're going, okay. You know what's fucking scary? Birds. Alfred Hitchcock had a way of just scaring the shit out of you.
Right.
And birds, right? The scene with her inside that phone booth, and they're just smashing the crap out of it.
Quick break. Phone booth kids are what we had before cell phones.
They were found all over the place.
All over the place, yeah.
I still like the Deadpool trailer for the second Deadpool movie, where he's getting. He's like, "We're missing the point here. What the hell's a phone booth doing here?"
Right. That may be our audience's only connection with phone booths. That and Doctor Who.
Yeah, right? Which that's a police box, though.
True.
That doesn't count as a phone booth, a legit phone booth.
True, but he has used it to blend in.
Yes.
With phone booths.
Yes, yes. So as we got out of the 60s kind of had some cool films, right? Have you seen Psycho? I know I've seen Psycho. I know I've seen Rosemary's Baby.
Have not seen that one. But Psycho, yes. Birds, yes.
Birds, yes. And I had not seen Carnival of Souls. I wasn't familiar with it. I did a little bit of reading on it.
Didn't Rob Zombie remake that?
I think so.
I think so too.
Night of the Living Dead, I've obviously seen. That was really, it's wonderful. I really liked Night of the Living Dead. Probably one of the top films as far as zombie movies go for me. Yeah, there you go. Carnival of Souls, 1962. And then 1998, Carnival of Souls.
Yep.
Is that the one you're thinking of?
Probably.
Yeah, that one.
Yep.
There you go.
Yep. I think I saw this one at a high school Halloween party.
Really?
I think so.
Oh, this is Wes Craven, though.
Yeah. Rob Zombie did something sound similar to that, or maybe he had an album or a tour titled this, but this sounds familiar. I think I have seen this.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, it's not one that I was really familiar with. So,
well, it's not one you're going to watch.
Yeah, no, not at all. Especially if there's even the remote possibility that there are clowns. And it says right there, by a circus clown. So, yeah, forget that. So then we bail out of the 60s, right? And we steamroll ourselves into the 1970s. Hey, let me ask you this. Tell me about the 1970s by comparison to literally everything else I've explained.
70s were...
Exactly. With the 60s over, the world kind of grew into this like grim bullshit place, right? The 60s were a time for sexual and cultural revolution, like moon landings and stuff like that, right? The 70s were just fucking disappointing.
The beginning of the make money.
Yeah. I mean, it's fucking boring. In all for all intents and purposes. So horror films focused on chaos of that kind of order to a degree. That's where we started getting like the Stepford Wives, Carrie, The Omen, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Halloween, and The Exorcist. Now, I've seen every one of those.
Seen most of them.
Have you watched the Stepford Wives?
No. That's one I haven't.
Really? Okay. That was my pick. Right?
Exorcist and what were the other ones?
The Exorcist, The Omen, Carrie, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Halloween. See?
Seen those.
So, Stepford Wives is really good. I mean, you know the premise of the Stepford Wives,
I do.
right? Okay, so you don't have to go into that, but the long and short of it is that it's like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, but not really.
Movies head to your suburban neighborhoods.
Exactly.
That's where except for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Right.
That was very rural, but...
And that, like I said, that's the other side of it, right? So you're not safe at home.
Right.
You're not safe with your kids.
Not safe on a road trip.
You're not safe on a road trip. You could literally get chainsawed to death.
In Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, you're not safe. No matter where you go domestically, you're not safe. Okay? So then we make our way into the 1980s. Now we've established that, there's your classic iconic movie monsters living and prowling in the darkness, right? There's stuff beyond us that's out there that scares the shit out of us because we don't know what it is, right? There's stuff at home. There are things that surround us. We've got all of these things, right? Well, then we get to the 1980s and they take a twist, right? We're safe. We don't have a safe. Right? But
in the 80s, your dreams aren't even safe because that's when Freddy
exactly. Now you can't even trust inside yourself.
Yep.
Right? Now even the sanctum of inside you isn't safe. That's where we end up getting The Shining, Alien, An American Werewolf in London, The Thing,
Hellraiser.
Yeah, The Evil Dead.
Evil Dead, yeah.
Child's Play.
Yeah.
So all of these things, and of course I've seen each of those. We were actually discussing American Werewolf in London on Spellcast. Yep. You guys haven't seen that one.
Had not. I want to say I saw the remake they did about 98 or 99.
For which
American Werewolf in Paris.
See, okay, that
like
one,
yeah.
American Werewolf in Paris is the one that's the more modernized version of it, but it's effectively the same
premise,
thing. Yeah.
I've seen Wolf.
The one with Jack Nicholson,
yeah,
where he crosses paths with the wolf and he gets bit.
Yeah,
I loved that movie. It's very
little off topic, but
it's almost tranquil.
Yeah.
Whenever he crosses paths with the wolf in the snow, right? I really like that movie. It was pretty good. Definitely not a horror movie though. No. Surprisingly, for the angle they took with it.
Yep.
So yeah, I really like that one. But yeah, so now we've alienated ourselves because you can't trust yourself now. You can't trust your friend.
Clockwork Orange? Was that 70s or 80s?
70s? I want to say 70s. Man, I want to say it's 70s. Clockwork Orange. 71. Wow. Booyah! Hells yes. I was like, I think that's the 70s. So, but that goes back to the same thing. Society being, them attacking order and people trying to fall into business and making cash.
That was the theme, kind of the 70s, disrupting the order.
Yeah.
With just chaos.
Social commentary, baby. It feeds us all, right? So then we get in the 1990s. And the 90s kind of sucked, too, for a lot of things. But they weren't as bad as the 70s, right? There was the upswing.
And this is where, like, I get to that, I Saw American Werewolf in Paris, or, you know,
right.
You get a lot of these remakes, revisits of things.
So you got remakes and revisits. The other angle that they ended up going with was serial killers.
Yep.
Okay? It's where we get Seven.
Yeah.
The book for American Psycho came out at this point in time.
That's what I was going to just look up.
Natural Born Killers.
Yep.
Silence of the Lambs. Now, here's the thing. I got to looking at this, and I'm like, okay, yeah, there are all of these kind of serial killer movies that are come out. So this thematic serial killer thing. Why are we so focused on this right now? Why the 90s, right? Because there have been serial killers before, right? But why is it so focused down at this point in time? So I got to looking up. I actually looked up a list of serial killers in the U.S., actually worldwide, but I was primarily focused on domestically. Gary Ridgway.
Don't know that one.
The Green River Killer.
Oh, heard. Okay.
Yeah. 82, active from 82 to 2000. So that was in that time frame, right? Ted Bundy was active 74 to 78, but he was given the electric chair 1989.
Okay.
John Wayne Gacy. 72 to 78, you know, the killer clown, executed 1994.
Interesting.
So all of these things are kind of like
OJ.
actively in the public eye at that time.
Yeah.
So these things are real to people, right?
And this 90s is the kind of the birth of the action news.
Yeah.
And so you have like the every murder or serial killer gets way more
attention than it really needed.
And OJ is a perfect example of that, like leading the decade not decade. Almost.
I mean,
yeah. But leading that year of
there's still jokes about white Broncos.
True. But that was like the public was all about the OJ trial and the murders, and so you're getting these again, kind of that suburban murderer or that everyday Joe that one day just flips a switch and backs you to death.
Yep. And, you know, of course, it can be anybody. It can be, you know, your friendly neighborhood moron just down the road from you. It can be the kids in you know, the backyard next door. It can be some complete, utter stranger that has no idea who you are.
Right.
You know, and that's part of the fear. The biggest overlying fear that everybody always goes to is the unknown, right? It's the fear of the unknown is just horrifying. Okay, it's what we can't explain. We don't know anything about it. We don't know where it comes from. We don't know what it wants. We don't know. You know, all of these things are left question marked. As a result, we're standing back, going, "Hey, we're at a loss."
Right.
And we don't have any way of defending ourselves. So 2000s, we get kind of this global convergence going on. That's my overlapping theme here, right? Started seeing a lot more zombie movies spawning out in 2000s.
And plague-type movies.
Plague-type movies.
World dominate or
Contagions.
World-ending stuff.
Contagions became, well, I think Contagions took off more towards the 2010, moving forward to now. That's the thing now. But for 2000s, it's global disaster.
Yeah, like Armageddon and Deep Impact and okay, yeah.
Even Final Destination falls into that category as well, because you literally have death stalking you because you managed to somehow skate out of its path, right? So all of these things, as we've been, you know, going through and kind of picking apart, you know, each of these 10-year, every now and again, we keep falling back to stuff over and over again. We keep going back to remaking the classic monster movies. You go back and you know, that's why we've seen a remake of The Mummy.
Right.
But that's why they're not being done well, right? That's why they're not as well received now, is because sure, you're remaking it, you're dusting the dust off of it, and you're putting it back out there again, but you're not attacking the angle that is scary to people. So now it's not a horror movie.
We're back into that. What's really happening in the world right now is more scary than a made up mummy or movie monster.
So that's why and I think that's part of why. Because somebody actually asked me today when I was sitting here, because I was making notes on this while I was at work, and one of the people came around and they were like, "Hey, what you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm working on this." These notes for my podcast. And they go, "Oh, well," they took it as I was like writing a paper about it or something for school. And I'm like, "No, it's a podcast that I do." And I explained to them about the show, and I was giving them some information about it and whatever. But as they're sitting here talking to me, they're like, "Well, why don't horror movies scare you anymore? Why do they all suck now? Why are they slasher flicks and torture porn?" It's because that's the other angle, right? That's like the fourth prong. But I don't really look at those things and go, these are horror movies, right? They're scary, sure. They're unsettling, sure.
I've seen I want to get back to that torture porn movies.
Yeah.
I've seen that birth happen since the late 90s.
Yeah.
Personally, because my first job was working at a TV station, and when I first started, I was only there for 3 years. You couldn't show blood or a dead body or anything like that on TV. And as I was leaving, you started getting to where you could.
Right.
You had more embedded journalists with the soldiers and everything. And so your nightly news showed dead bodies and explosions and blood and cuts and gore. And it became not scary.
Right.
Until they had to amp it up with like Saw and things like that.
Yeah.
So,
which we're still seeing. Jigsaw now. It's in the movies. It's in the theaters now.
But it's not as shocking, I don't think, as it was in 98 or whenever Saw came out.
Right.
It's an old-ass movie now,
right.
Come think of it, but it's not as shocking now.
Some of the things that were in Saw, or Hostel.
I remember being scared shitless in the first Saw.
Yeah.
It was
because it was different.
Heart-pounding, yeah.
It was different, right? But now we're desensitized to that.
I haven't seen any of the new ones. I think I saw the second one.
You know what I think the next one's going to be? Contagions are kind of coming to an end, right? Being fear of viruses and sicknesses and bird flu and all that stuff. That's all kind of starting to wear off at this point in time. Okay?
Right.
You know what I think the next one is?
Yeah.
Racial fault lines.
Yeah. I was going to say something like that.
We've already seen Get Out.
Yeah.
And people have been oohing and on over that for a while now, right? Mm-hmm. I think that one's a precursor to the next round of things that we're getting ready to see.
Yeah.
Because it's okay, so we've...
I think not just racial, but I think societal divide.
And that's the clarification I was literally getting ready to make is that, they're going to start isolating you from me.
Yeah,
and
military versus the public.
What makes us separate from one another, right? Yep. So it was, the great scary unknown. Then it was monsters in the great scary unknown. Mm-hmm. Then it was, the fear of what could be inside you. The fear of not being able to sleep and being in your own head. And they, as we step through these things, they're just dwindling down these safety areas, the places where you have a break from all of the big scary, right?
Right.
And one of the things that they really haven't, don't get me wrong, they've touched on it, right?
Right.
They've kind of danced around it because there is that taboo that surrounds those things, what separates you from me kind of stuff,
and
right?
They haven't gotten into that point where like your party could be divided.
Exactly.
And it could actually happen with you and I if you were still a commissioned cop,
right?
And you were given an order. I'm not, and you have to follow that order. That's kind of scary. That
yeah. So there's angles that are there,
and
I think that that's what we're looking for. Mm-hmm. So one of the things a long time ago, whenever Adam and I started writing our book series, we were trying to come up with our own world, our own universe, our own gods and demons and things of that nature, right? And I have always been firmly of the opinion that a cold, cool, calm, collect, calculating monster is far more terrifying than the loud, explosions and fire and instant gratification monster right before you, right?
Absolutely.
So I read a book at one point in time. It was actually the Diablo series for the books, right? Have you ever read any of those?
No, and I would, and I probably should because I enjoy those type of books. I read the Doom series. There are 4 books based on Doom, and my God, those books are awesome. So
Really?
Yeah, they are. They are phenomenal. So I ought to look those up on Amazon, see if they're on there.
Because I had several of them, and I'm sorry I didn't have this pulled up to begin with. But there is a book. There's 3 of them. There's 3 or 4 of them actually. They're really, really good. I've read The Kingdom of Shadow, which I really enjoyed, and there's one about a suit of armor, which is really good. There it is. That's what I need. This is what I need. Legacy of Blood. That's the one I was talking about with the suit of armor. It's pretty good. I've read it. The 3 that I read was Kingdom of Shadow, Legacy of Blood, and is it Demon's Bane? No, there's another one. And basically what it is, there is a demon that ends up getting released into the world, and there's a soldier that witnesses it happen, and he ends up getting back home, and they prep forces, and they getting everything ready, and he's like, it's coming, oh God, it's going to be bad, and then the next thing you know, it doesn't happen. There it is, the Black Road. That's what it's called.
The what? The
Black Road. And no one believes him. For weeks, nothing happens. For months, nothing happens. But there's this demon that's supposed to be out there, supposedly on a warpath, right? And it doesn't happen. Instead, what this creature does is it starts manipulating people, forms a religion, starts healing people, and he convinces them that, well, you can't die on my behalf. You can't die. And becomes like this false prophet that's like, you follow me and you literally cannot die. Mm-hmm. And so he's using them as a people army in order to, overtake things. Right. And in my mind, that was always scarier than, the one that's just, because good and well, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's scary having a monster at your door, right?
Oh, yeah.
But whenever it's like, okay, well, that one's the clear and present danger, right? That's what you deal with, right? It's the one that blindsides you.
Yeah, exactly. The scariest inmates I ever dealt with were the ones that didn't talk much, looked at you straight in the eyes, and said very little.
Yeah.
You could tell things were working in their mind.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that were yelling and banging on doors, I'd stand all day flipping them off.
Yeah, because it's like, whatever.
You open the door, they ain't going to do shit.
Yeah. But with that, when we were creating our version of hell in my story world and with Adam, at one point I presented him this idea. I said, okay, so you die. You're aware you have died. But you wake up and it's total darkness. You can't feel anything around you. You can't hear anything around you. And you're there for what seems days. Nothing's there. You're just kind of free floating. You can't really tell that there's a floor beneath you, but you're not moving. You're not falling. You can't tell there's anything above you. You don't feel like you're wearing any clothes. You're just kind of there. It's not hot. It's not cold. You're just there. Okay? You're just conscious. You're aware of your entire body, though, right? You can tell that you're there. You can feel yourself. Mm-hmm. And eventually you start getting comfortable that you're alone. You're moving around and you kind of have this sensation that you're there by yourself. You don't, there's no perimeter to where it is you're at. You're just kind of there. And that's all well and good until one day something touches your leg. And you start to realize that there is something in the darkness with you that you don't know where it's at. And you can't see it. You don't know what it wants. You don't know what it needs. You don't know if it's going to kill you or eat you or tear you apart or what. And it would drive you insane. Mm-hmm. Knowing something was there and never being able to prove it. But it can see you. And it knows where you are and it can find you. There's nothing in my mind more scary than that, right? Than on the other end of the spectrum.
For sure.
So whenever I'm looking at all of these movie titles that we've gone over and all of these concepts and ideas and this social commentary stuff that they've got out there, you can see very easily that it started as this big, huge, wide spectrum, and then they started going focusing down real hard on the things that were active at that point in time. That's why we get movies that do scary technology and scary hackers, and there's not a lot of those that are horror movies, but that's where you get your action films from. That's where you get all these things from. It's more of them looking at the world as it currently stands and going, this is some scary shit, right? Creepy dolls and possessions and it's all of the unknowns. What do you think your favorite scary movie is? Do you have one?
Showgirls.
I think you've given me that answer before.
I'll give that answer every time because that's the greatest line of a scary movie I've ever heard.
Yeah,
that's from Scream 1 or 2.
Yep.
Yeah, but I'm partial to the Nightmare on Elm Street movies.
Yeah,
and it's hard for me to pick which one. The first one is the scariest and most horror-like. They become a little bit campy and comedic, which suits my taste more.
Yeah.
But I will say, like, there's a third or fourth one where you get some of the backstory, and it talks about his mother was a nun who worked in this insane asylum, and she was raped by 10,000 maniacs, he being the bastard son. And that, for some reason, stuck with me. It was like, my God, that's kind of a horrific thing.
Right.
She lived through it, gave birth to a child that is, obviously it's not the son of 10,000 maniacs, but it's, it's
one of,
yeah.
And then raised it.
Yeah. That's a dark, scary thought.
Yeah.
So.
And then to grow up knowing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think at one point it may be the same movie, but it talks about his daughter and how he killed her, and that's where kind of things took off. Those are, if you get past the goofy campiness of it, of Freddy being a bus and stuff like that, that's some deep psychological, and they've done some old god stuff with it too.
Yeah. So I think and part of that really, really feeds into itself because you can't sleep. The monster literally is inside your own skull, and you can't sleep.
Right.
The problem is you can't stop that. You're eventually going to.
Yeah.
And when you do,
or you die.
I
mean, you can die from lack of sleep.
Yeah. So you've got some options here. You either die in your dreams, you die in reality, or you just don't sleep and then you die.
Yep.
Or you don't sleep and then you start sleeping without knowing you're sleeping, and then you're trapped in a dream anyway.
Yep. And that's why I always thought Freddy was the most dangerous over Jason, because hey, last year a bunch of kids got fucking hacked to death at this camp. Maybe we don't go there this year.
Yeah.
Sure, he's gone to Manhattan and stupid shit like that, but
yeah. Unless you watch, what is it, Jason X, where he literally goes off-world.
Jason in space. Yeah. He beats the camper across the tree.
Which, that is the best scene ever.
Yeah, I got to give you that.
Yeah, he literally uses a sleeping bag full of I'm going to call them cheerleaders.
Yeah.
A sleeping bag full of girl and crushes them against a tree. Yep. And the guy that lands on the giant auger blade and spirals his way down. That was kind of cool. But I think that's kind of the problem with it, though. It's not scary, right? It was just like, it's how many ways can Jason kill a person?
And he moves pretty goddamn slow. He's never been a runner.
Yep.
So my logic mind says, get on a road, run straight. You'll hit a main road, maybe flag somebody down. Jason doesn't stick his machete in your chest. Freddy, on the other hand, I'm kind of tired right now. I could theoretically doze off during this podcast.
And no matter
and I'm
where,
fucked.
No matter where you're at, that's happening. Right?
Yeah.
And the other catch is maybe you're sleeping now.
Yeah. Exactly.
And that's the part that sucks.
I mean, we've got red and black microphone covers.
Well, the thing is that a lot of the dream states that they go into for that to begin with, They don't realize they're dreaming to begin with.
Right.
Until suddenly they're like, oh, wait, that's not normal. Oh, shit, I'm sleeping.
Yeah, exactly. That is why that's the most scary horror movie for me, or genre.
See, I think
series.
For me, aside from the fucking low-hanging fruit answer of anything clown-related, which I won't give you, I think The Thing is pretty scary for me, right? Not being able to trust that the people that are there with you, right? Because in a horror movie scenario, you really need to rely on those around you in order to be able to survive, right? Yeah. Same as real world application. You know, as much as people sit there and boast about being preppers and self-sufficient and stuff like that, you still have to rely on other people to a degree. But if you can't trust that the person you're dealing with isn't the enemy, especially if they're presented as a friend, then you're just as screwed as the rest of us.
Those things legit scare me. There's that small part of my brain that's like, Freddy could exist, or the thing could be real. Those type of things, there's that little bit of your mind that says, you can't prove otherwise.
Yeah.
Whereas, like I said, the Jason movies, you run away. Mike Myers, you run away. Werewolf in Paris, you run away. You can escape these things, or you can 100% prove they don't exist.
Yeah.
I'm not a dream expert. I don't know what happens in my dreams. Nobody really knows what happens in your dreams. And if there are skinwalkers or things like that, you can't prove that there aren't. So there's that little chip in your mind that's like, I'm taking a nap when I'm just going to hope I wake up.
Yep.
But I don't know for sure.
Yep.
So
it's just you and me in this, and I hope you're you.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
So it's those things for me that are really unnerving.
And zombie movies, I've got some guns. I've got, some wits.
I think the problem with zombie movies nowadays is that there are so many people that have seen so many zombie movies and so many zombie books and so many zombie games that there are a lot of people that are like, my God, I would have a ball.
Right. Well,
right. It'd still suck.
Yeah.
I saw a meme at one point in time. It was one of the overhead views of a crowd of zombies surrounded around a car, and there's a guy standing on top of it. And it was two pictures. It said, it had an arrow pointed at the guy and says, this is who you think you are. And then over here it shows in the crowd somewhere, it says, this is who you actually are.
Right.
You think you're the guy that's going to survive the zombie apocalypse, right? But you're probably not.
But you get what I'm saying, though, is like there are certain aspects of certain horror franchises or movies that you have a little training for, and you probably got a better chance. Zombies being one, Psycho or The Shining, things like that. If Jack Nicholson is chasing me down the hall with a baseball bat, I'm like, fuck off, Jack.
Yeah.
And punch him in the nose.
But it's ghosts.
Yeah.
That's that, right?
Yeah.
It's ghosts.
Yeah.
Or demons.
And you kind of tie back into the thing, but Jack wasn't acting it. What's his name? I don't want to keep calling him Jack, but he wasn't ever really acting as what we were led to believe he used to act like. So I'm thinking from day one I get there, I'm like, you're being a douche. Knock it off.
Acting a fool. Knock it.
Yeah.
Stop.
Or I'll just leave.
Yeah.
I got a couple days to leave. Fuck you. You're being a dick. I'm leaving.
Yeah. So I think that we have kind of an idea of what it is that really drives these movies into what it is that we end up getting. Yeah. But I also think that a reason we keep seeing scary movies that aren't scary and what we're getting now is because they're losing real estate in regards to new horizons for what it is that scares the shit out of us.
Right.
Because it's either been done before, or there's not enough fear of that thing, right? So they have to artificially inflate that a little bit.
Yep.
And that's kind of where we end up, and I think that's really the answer. To me, I think that's really what it is that we're seeing right now is we're kind of getting to that point where it's like, well, they've all kind of been done.
And I think we're seeing more and more superhero movies because that's what society's wanting. They're wanting somebody that's not a dick.
Yeah.
Or that has maybe a flaw that they can overcome.
Yeah.
Rather than just riding the bastard out.
Yeah.
All the way to the ground, you know?
Yeah.
So.
I kind of like our episodes whenever we get to focusing down real hard on a movie.
Yeah.
I really enjoy talking about specific movies and the details of the movie and, you know, the actors that are in it, things of that nature. But I really like these wide sweeping topics we do on occasion because they kind of get, every now and then they get kind of deep, right?
Right.
I remember one of the ones early on where we were discussing, it's one of the home episodes that I did back before we were recording here.
Right.
But we were talking about, it was our hacker episode.
I was on that one.
And, yeah, the hackisode.
Yep.
And how we were talking about, you know, the fear of hackers and the unknown with that. And I remember Mike actually sitting back towards the end of the episode going, man, this episode got really deep. And, you know, I think we walked into this one thinking, oh, it's going to kind of be that. And I know Adam would have brought some more to the table, and I definitely know Seth would have brought some more to the table, but like I said, they got kind of occupied. But I didn't want to bypass the opportunity of getting in here and having a recording session with you, especially whenever we had prepared so much. So I think, for me, that kind of covers the topic that I wanted to. I know this is kind of a short episode, but being
Not that short.
Being almost, but close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades.
True.
Anyhow, you got anything going on over here at Spellbook Studios?
Yeah, we do actually. We're getting really close to throwing the Infinite Black expansion out there.
Sweet.
We're holding contests right now for people to design their maps that they'll play on. I believe this is contest 3 or 4 that's going on right now over on the forums. Check that out. Also, we're dabbling in VR.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Can't go into much more about that, but that's a thing.
Yes, sir. Well, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up right there. Make sure you check out our other videos. If you like this one, like, subscribe, all that good stuff on the old YouTubes. Otherwise, you know, get over and hit us up on your podcast catcher and all that good stuff. And
podcast catcher.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying.
Is there an app called that?
I don't know. There probably is.
Probably.
Yeah, get over there, do all those things, share us, like us, all that good stuff. I telling a couple of people about us the other day, and they're like, well, how do you get your information out? And I'm like, word of mouth. Literally me just talking to people and being like, I do this show.
Yep.
So yeah, get over there, check us out. You know, if you have anybody that might be interested in listening to us, you know, kick them over our direction.
Put an episode on your Facebook wall. Tag a couple people.
Yeah, that'd be great. Leave us some comments. I've been getting more comments on the recent Let's Play series that I've been doing with Ledge for Spec Ops The Line here.
Yeah.
So I've been getting 3 or 4 people commenting on those. So I really dig the comments, and I'll always respond back to people on them. So anyhow, we will see you all in the next episode of Spoilercast.
Make sure to check out our website, All Tower... Fucking hell.
Bloody hell, mate.
Let me try that one again.